All right, guys, for today's workout, we're going to be inside just because of the fact that we're going to need to use the sofa, or at least a footrest for the sofa. Today, we're going to be doing the mobility with emphasis on your hips. Your hips are a very, very important part of your body in that they have, each muscle consists of an origin and insertion. Origin is acting, insertion is acted upon. So for example, my bicep, the origin is here, the insertion is here. As I contract that bicep, that insertion moves toward the origin. Your hips are very unique in that they're the only part of your body that only has origins, and therefore everything moves towards your hips originally. Once those hips get out of line, your posture gets distorted the entire way upstream and downstream. So your hips, if they're in a bad position, they're going to pull your lower back into a bad position, which pulls your upper back into a bad position, pulls your shoulders in a bad position, and does the same thing on the way down through your legs as well. So the first thing we're going to start off with, I'm going to be using an alpha ball for this. It's a yoga tune-up ball. It's called the alpha ball. It's the biggest ball. You could also use the foam roller too as well. But the first place we're going to start off with is, you'd have to use a lacrosse ball for this one. So the first place we're going to start off with is going to be my psoas. Now my psoas originates at my lumbar spine here, draws down through my hips, and then inserts into my inner thigh about a third of the way down your thigh. It's a hip flexor, so it's in a shortened position all day long. As we're in that seated position all day long, it's shortened here, and it gets lengthened as we extend backwards. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with that lacrosse ball or the alpha ball, 2 to 3 inches, just outside of your belly button here. We're going to apply pressure, and you're going to work your way from here all the way down through that hip and into that inner thigh here, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to lay down here. I'm going to show you on the right side here now. And I'm just going to line up my belly button. I'm going to let it sink through my abs a little bit, let that pressure build up, and then I'm slowly going to make my way down in through my hips. I'm just looking for any tender spots. And once again, once I find a tender spot, I'm going to hold on that tender spot for about 30 seconds each tender spot. I'm going to keep on making my way all the way down until I'm into that inner thigh here. Okay? The next one we're going to do is we're just going to get all the hip flexors. There are multiple hip flexors. You have your TFL, you have your rectus femoris, you have your psoas, etc., etc. So we're just going to go through and we're going to start off on the outside of that hip here. And we're going to roll throughout that entire crease of that hip across this way. Okay, so what I'm going to have you guys do is just lay down on your belly. We're going to put that ball on the crease of our hip. We're going to start off angling our body away from that. And then we're going to start to slowly go across looking for any tender spots. If it feels a little bit tight, feels a little bit tender, you can try to contract that and then relax into that. You can just go across it, back and forth. You can go up and down this way. Whatever feels like it's hitting it the best. And we're just going to follow the entire crease of the hip, looking for anything that's tender on in there. Okay? The next one that I'm going to have you do is going to be, dog's here with us. We're going to get the glute med next. So to get that glute med, I'm just going to have you lay down on your side here. And you'll find that in your butt cheek, there's like a dimple in that butt cheek here where it kind of sinks in a little bit. That should be where you locate your glute med. And so we're just going to straighten out that leg underneath here. Look for any tender spots in there. I don't know if you can see the ball that well, but let's see if I can back a little bit further. There you go. And so we're just going to be right on in here, looking for any tender spots on in there. You can decrease that tension by putting this foot up here. If you want to increase that tension, we can drop that foot back down. Okay. Once again, every tender spot that you find, hold for 30 seconds. Okay. Next one that we're going to do is going to be your piriformis. Your piriformis draws from your tailbone here to what's called your great trochanter, which is that outside portion of that hard bony structure you feel on the outside of your hip here. And so we're just going to draw a line going from those 2 points. And in order to get that, we're going to put ankle on knee, and we're just going to rock back and forth, nice and tender in there. Looking for anything, feels a little bit tacky. You could go back through too as well and get your entire butt with that foam roller. You can do it with your knee down here. As I go over right where that tie-in is into my hamstring, I can keep my foot down. As I get more into my piriformis area, I can bring that foot back up into here too as well, okay? I'm using the foam roller for that. Last one we're going to do with the foam roller is going to be up high into that adductor. We did gracilis on day 2. Now we're going to do a small adductor muscle called your pectineus, which is right in the crease of that hip there, right high up in that growing area there, okay? And once again, I'm using that foam roller. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay? Next, for our static stretching. The reason why I want to do this inside, the first one that we're going to do is going to be for our hip flexors, for that psoas. And so what I'm going to have you do is you're going to put one foot up on that box here, and we're going to drop that knee as close back to that corner as you can. We're going to push that hip as far forward as you can. We're squeezing that glute, leaning back while hips are coming forward, shoulder blades are going backwards. Should feel pretty intense stretch here. And once again, we want to hold that stretch for anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes, okay? If it's not 2 minutes or 5 minutes straight through, that's fine. You could go through and do 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, etc., etc. Okay? Or you can just go 2 to 5 minutes straight through if you want. Next one that we're going to do is going to be for the piriformis. And what I'm going to have you do is you're going to put your foot on top of your sofa or on top of your stool or your chair rest, whatever you're using. And we're going to drop that knee down here and then drop that back knee down. Chest comes up as high as we can. I'm trying to drop that hip down the back end of that socket this way. So I'm trying to push down, trying to push my butt backwards as far as I can. If I bring that knee back a little bit further, you're going to find that becomes a bit more intense there. If you're finding that you're getting pressure in your knees, very commonly, the piriformis has a tendency of being excessively tight on one side and very loose on the opposite side, which isolateral tension only on one side, can be a very, very bad thing because it creates rotation, and rotation is always bad for your joints, especially your lower back. We have a tendency of, like, this feels very comfortable for me. This side, right? And so it gets very, very tight. So you'll find that one side's probably a little bit tighter. You could create a little bit of a relief valve by bringing that foot a little bit further forward, and it won't be quite as intense as if it's back in here, and you won't feel as much pressure in your knee by letting that knee remain a little bit further forward here, and you can get that same stretch, and then eventually you'll be able to work it back towards you. So if you're feeling pressure in that knee, just let that front ankle come forward just a bit. Okay? That's going to be your piriformis stretch. Next, we're going to stretch out those inner thighs. We're going to use a frog stretch. So our frog stretch, that position is going to be here like this. We're going to be laying down on the ground. We're going to be pushing our hips forward or downward depending on the position. So we're going to use 3 positions. Big key on this one is we want our ankles wider than our knees, okay? So what we don't want is we don't want it to be here like this where those ankles are tight. We want to open up those feet and let those ankles get a little bit wider than your knees. So the first one that we're going to do is we're going to start off with your hips slightly out in front of your knees, ankles wider than your knees, and you're going to push your hips forward and try to separate your knees away from each other, and you're going to try to push your knees downward. Position number 2 is we're going to line up those hips with the knees, and we're going to try to push out and down. You'll start to feel that stretch a little more across your butt cheeks. And the last one that we're going to do is we're really going to try to push backwards and down toward my ankles. And once again, each stretch we want to have held for anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. Okay? That's your mobility routine for the day. That's just going to be hips. All right, guys. Have a great day.